Hello, I'm Mark Schlosser, and I head up the marketing integrity team at White Ops. When most people think about cybercrime, they immediately gravitate towards it being a security problem. In reality, cybercrime can have a massive impact on the entire digital funnel. Bots are designed to look and act exactly like humans. We see them do so much more than just click on ads today. They sign up for insurance policies, buy limited supply sneakers, build and price cars, and even listen to music. Looks like we have a lot of performance marketers joining us today who are focused on growth and acquisition. When we dive into this topic from a performance perspective and from a marketer's lens, we see bots being driven via tactics such as search, social, email, and affiliate channels. Once on site, the bots then begin to fill out lead forms, and the life of the bot really is just beginning. Enters into a data pool, retargeting starts, audience models are created. Many are familiar with White Ops work. We protect over 85% of the global programmatic spend from ad fraud, and many will know us from our collective protection efforts, leading to the takedown of massive botnet operations such as Eve. Today, we are using that same technology to help marketers eliminate bots from their strategies, returning millions of dollars into driving actual customers. I couldn't be more excited to be joined by a former FBI analyst and now human at White Ops, who is a huge part of the reason that we're able to stay ahead of the constant threats of sophisticated bots and accomplish our mission of disrupting the economics of cybercrime. Dr. Russ, such a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for such a wonderful introduction. It's great to talk to you as always.
Yeah, great. So Dr. Russ, kicking things off, you've started and sold the company, worked for a major stock exchange, and then spent 10 years in the FBI. After such an accomplished and varied career, do bad actors still surprise you?
Yeah, absolutely. Primarily because they're humans and they're creative. And there is a functional component of an industry where when one set of defenders goes to fix and fight and thwart an adversarial's action, it turns back around and they just pivot in brand new creative ways. And there's an aspect of it where it's very artistic, if you will. But one of the things that is fundamentally true as to why it is continually surprising is that, how many billions of people are there in the world, and the internet has certainly kind of made everyone far more accessible to each other. We're, on average, probably about 150 milliseconds away from any other human that is connected to the internet at any given point in time. And if you think about crime in the history of the last 100 years, it was very much a meat space. You had to physically be there to commit the crime, sort of thing. And as people have become more connected to each other without the need of physically being next to each other, it has created new capabilities and new tools and new procedures for leveraging technology to commit traditional forms of crime. And it all falls into that mantra now, like the whole construct of one man's trash is another man's treasure. There's always, with all this connectivity, there's a high probability that there's someone out there that wants something that you have, something that you know, or something that you are. And that something that you have could be your account credentials for an online system. They want to be able to use your persona online. Or something else that you have is a high-speed internet connection. They want to leverage your access and your presence on the internet in order to facilitate a crime. Something that could be a conversation between you and other peers, or within systems of records that you may have for your job, or something that you are in the sense of impersonating you, in order, like maybe you're not the direct target, but someone else is. So they pivot via you in order to hit that other individual. So yeah, it really is incredible as to how accessible people are in the world with stuff at the moment.
Yeah, and I think it rings so true. From a Russian cyber criminal was sentenced last week after creating, sort of $100 million botnet was in the papers, and they used 200,000 devices for the scheme. Most people really don't realize the level of sophistication, the entrepreneurial aspects of it, and really the ease to scale. And for a marketer, if you think about sort of malicious bots on site, Many times, a point of entry for intelligence and exploiting data can be through marketing, as crazy as that sounds. And, a PPC campaign designed to drive traffic, it needs to be thought about from a security perspective. If you think about for a financial institution, an insurance company, healthcare, or really any company that is managing customer data, there's a key thing that marketers need to know and truly understand. And while nearly every company is building sort of a digital first strategy where they're trying to reach and convert new customers online, as companies bring these marketplaces online and are bringing more people really through the marketing funnel, what are the types of things that they really need to be mindful of?
Well, they need to be mindful of the fact that there are people that are out there that want to profit off of your business decisions and your point of presence. And they have figured out facilities as to how to do so and how to do so at scale, and also at speed. It's impressive to look back in the world of cybercrime in the sense of seeing how we started with a benign piece of software, the first virus of like the Morris worm, to now taking a look at how there's these massive criminal enterprises, both from and actors, both from a perspective of nation state to actual straight up criminals, figuring out ways as to how to profit off of people. And they do market research just like anyone else. They take a look at the way that they look for opportunities is by reading the news about mergers and acquisitions, new products showing up, new brands, new stuff that's getting ready to enter market spaces, primarily because from a human psyche aspect, that's a brand new thing. And that brand new thing means that there's an opportunity there to hijack it. There's also been instances where companies, when they undergo a merger and acquisition or rebranding or anything along those lines, the actors know that the infrastructure is changing and the people are changing, and they leverage those opportunities to attack them in order to get a toehold in, either for revenue or leveraging their infrastructure to go on to attack their actual true destination. So at the end of the day, there's like a huge reputation risk that people don't always articulate with it. Platforms that either allow the messaging to occur and don't stop it in time, or even from brand hijacking and misrepresentation. One of a non-cyber related one, but a very simple one, is like with counterfeit goods. I had the opportunity of having a discussion about counterfeit whiskey with a master distiller of a very large brand. And the big challenge that they had was they had a brand reputation issue with Asian markets, primarily because counterfeiters over there had figured out a way to either recycle or recreate the labels of their bottles. And they were essentially just putting just junk, like horrible stuff, and then food coloring in it. And then that was the brand. And subsequently, they've still struggled to get traction in that particular market. So it's a thing about attention and or the construct of attention. Like we want positive attention, but the more attention that you get also brings the negative aspects as well.
Reminds me of the wine market as well, and also olive oil in Italy has the same exact problem. So it's counterfeit goods, and it's a fascinating topic all in itself. And so, what I'm essentially hearing is, and what we essentially hear a lot of times is, there's really two types of marketers who are especially vulnerable. One being the marketer who is sort of not aware of the risk and the potential schemes which could be costing them money. And then, like using your whiskey example there, the second one is really, those who experience sort of large successes, because it becomes a case of robbing the successful product, because that's where the most transactions are happening, and that's where the opportunity really exists, even if the proper controls are in place. And the one thing to keep in mind is one entertainment company, as an example, that we were working with. They had a new launch and they were using old customer data points, and you have to think through everything. So it turns out that like many of these past data points ended up being bots. And our clients were building strategies off of these, including things like audience modeling. And so if you start off with the wrong whiskey or the wrong data, you're never going to sort of have the best product, the best ingredients to be successful in building. And so it becomes really just so important to look at everything with a fresh perspective to ensure that your ingredients to start with are the right ingredients, so that there's not longer term ramifications, which essentially doesn't just sort of impact financially, but there's also so much sort of wasted time and analytics that go on top of that. But everyone's super interested in you and in terms of your background here. So and you have a much more broad background than just the advertising world. And you've had the exposure with the advertising ecosystem while with the FBI due to White Ops collaborative work on sort of the Eve operation. So a humble brag coming. Multiple people are sitting in a Brooklyn jail cell today awaiting trial due to that. What has surprised you the most about the world of cybercrime and advertising?
As it relates to that, so having come from a career where it was dealing with a variety of different theft vehicles and mechanisms, seeing just how much there was. I had always felt that there was more when I was in government service, and the institution is not the biggest one. I can't take every case and every investigation that comes in, but I always felt like that there were these like big schemes and all that sort of construct that's going on out there. And having come to White Ops, I actually now get to see it, and I also get to work more with other industry partners, more so than I did in my prior career, to the point in which I get we work it really hard and fast, and we being the industry and partners, it's not just White Ops in this space, but we are one of the leaders of this type of investigative function and activity, where when we find these bots, we pass it to our partners, and then they take swift action. And one of the best examples of that recently was with our terracotta investigation, where it started off with a group of actors that started attacking a handful of our customers, and we were able to see the signal from the noise floor. We were able to identify and get samples of the malware to detonate, which none of our other partners were able to do. And then that led towards a faster resolution and attribution within the ecosystem in which it was being promoted. And then subsequently, because of how quickly we worked it and the trust that we have with our partners on it, it just ran a whole lot faster and far more naturally at that particular point. So it turned into another broader discussion of, it wasn't just advertisers that were the victims in this particular scheme, but also the internet carriers, the telecommunication carriers. One aspect of it, they're a victim in it. And then the end users themselves, who had the infected piece of software on their endpoint device, were also victims because it was prematurely aging their equipment that they had purchased. So that there was just this interesting dissection of, it wasn't just the cash out process of beating up the advertisement revenue systems. It was also a trickle effect of victims from people who had the hardware that was infected to people who also supported the traffic from the infection moving through their infrastructure. So yeah, it was, I always knew it was there, and I never got an actual chance to work it hands-on as much as we had since until I joined White Ops. So that was a fascinating experience in order to see it through and through.
To me, and one of the things that like kind of fascinates me, and it's like how people still sort of judge success and ask so constantly about benchmarks, because like it doesn't really matter, because as you're talking about the investigations like Terracotta, every vulnerability and every threat is so different, and all that really matters is sort of the business impact to the particular brand. So like I'll give you a real-time example. Like let's just say you have a a sophisticated bot rate come into your site of 2%, if that 2% is compromised of your two most sort of valuable customer acquisition tactics, I could almost predict with 100% confidence that you're not going to be hitting your numbers for that particular quarter. So like the benchmark doesn't matter in these cases. And that's what I think it's so important for marketers to really understand as you're talking about these individualized operations, is like the vulnerabilities are always different. And it just matters what matters to driving sort of bottom line and what marketers are really trying to accomplish from their digital marketing perspectives. And as we begin getting sort of a lot of true data points on where we can really help marketers, for performance marketers, if you're spending $1 million a month on digital performance strategies, there's a lot of worthwhile savings really to be had. And if you just use like a number of $1 million a month in performance spend, we see at a minimum there's $500,000 in annual losses to bots at a minimum, based on the loss of bots, the managing data, and really like the full lifetime value of models that are being built. It's like the benchmark doesn't matter, just clean it up, because you'll save money, you'll save time. And I often have conversations where point in time is taken as what it'll be tomorrow. And as you're talking about all these threats, like it's just, that's what I really want marketers to take away from a lot of this.
I feel that there should be better recognition that that this sort of activity is at such a huge scale at this particular point. Like you may feel like you're just being nickel and dimed bled out as far as revenue streams are concerned. But in reality, if you want, from the actor's perspective, you're just one part of their revenue stream. They do this at scale. And it's no longer just the stereotypical cybercrime rings that were of 10 years ago. Drug cartels are involved with cybercrime and online fraud. There's terrorism groups that are out there that are using this as a source of revenue stream. There are nation states that are, blacklisted from like financial transactions and mechanisms and things along those lines. So it's a fundamental construct of recognizing that it's not just the loss, it's what is it funding, and not entirely fully grasping what it is funding, which then should turn into I need that hemorrhaging of bleeding on that side to stop. And then that's where the community can step forward and say, we need to do collective protection and more actions in order to make it stop.
So, as we're wrapping up here, I know you're sort of a student in life in general from our many conversations and hacking and some other really interesting topics. Based on your professional experience, what is, not asking you to go too deep on this one, but, what's available in the public domain, what do you recommend folks read or watch to really truly understand this topic?
Well, the first thing is don't panic. While there are many ways that the world could end, from meteors coming down to other aspects of things, there's stuff that you can plan for and make sure that you do have a plan and execute on the plan. And that's like the kind of disaster recovery preparedness sort of aspect of things. So it's recognize that you have a problem and come up with a plan as to how to address it if and when you feel like you need to, or if it surfaces above the noise floor.
That's great. And I know that we've in our resource center on within the platform for this conference, I know there's a couple of the articles that you've mentioned throughout, and I think you're a fascinating sort of brain in itself, and mindset and experience level, and I'd love to host an Ask Me Anything. So if people are interested in that over a couple beers one day, hopefully we can also set that up with you if you'd be willing to do something like that.
Absolutely.
Marketers can learn a ton. But Dr. Ross, it's such a pleasure always speaking with you, and I hope the audience learned a lot today, and it's brightened up your Monday in a way that that you weren't expecting.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always great chatting with you as well.
Thanks. Take care now.